Hello and welcome to another Outside the Box review. Today we are looking at the Colossus from Marvel Universe. If you saw my review of the Mark V Iron Man, you know my kind of little story about these guys, that I've been listening to a Marvel toy review podcast called Marvelicious Toys. Definitely go check them out, Google them or whatever. It's a really cool little review podcast if you're into these kind of figures. And they really got me intrigued into picking up some of these 3 3/4 inch figures. The reports of the quality on these guys, and I had to go pick up some Marvel figures just to check them out. I managed to find both the Iron Man and this Colossus for a pretty good price, so I figured I'd pick them up and review them and see how they really were. I gotta say, when I actually went to the store that I found these guys at, the supply of Marvel Universe was a little lacking, and it seems like Marvel Universe is kind of hit or miss at stores. You get some stores that have a ton of them. You have some that just have the Iron Man figures left over, or the Spider-Man figures left over. And then you have other places that have the characters that you've never heard of sitting on the pegs, and nobody's buying them because nobody's heard of them. I was definitely happy to find the Colossus figure. I really enjoyed the character as a kid, and definitely one of my favorite X-Men. So, let's take a more in-depth look at this guy. He comes with a pretty simple little display base. This says Marvel up here, Colossus, and I guess that's his figure number 13. I like it. It's simple, it's understated, and it has a character name on it. I don't think you ask for a whole lot more with a display for a figure. Plus, it doesn't take up a lot more room than the figure itself. Now, I know this is probably standard size for all of them, so maybe if you had a smaller figure, this would be a little big. But for Colossus, it's a good size. And I do like the fact that you could pick up a bunch of these figures and just have this standard plaque for them to sit on. And they would all kind of look uniform. I also like having a little bit of uniformity in a display, especially with a Marvel thing, where the characters are going to be so varied and so brightly colored and just have so much different about them. It's nice to have something the same. So put that aside, we'll take a look at the big guy himself. I gotta say, this figure is really nicely sculpted. There's a lot of good detail in him. He's got his uniform on, his big, tall boots, his wristbands. They got all these little grooves in his armor, and those are all sculpted in, which is really nice. I mean, they could have just painted those on, but they're definitely, there's definitely a texture to them. And the back's no different. There's lots of good detail on them. The muscles look good. All the detail's good. The face is really nice. I love the facial expression he's making. I could just hear the Russian accent coming out of his mouth with that face sculpt. I don't know why, but it just screams Russian to me. They definitely did a good job of making him look human, but still making him look like he's made out of metal. The paint job is pretty nice. There's a couple little flaws. There's a little bit of slop up here on his chest. And there's a couple other places where the lines aren't quite as clean as they should be. And the one thing that perplexes me is at the bottom joint here, they just painted the top of it and not this under ridge. So you have the metallic silver from his body shining through where his clothes are. That's a little disappointing. They did the same on the back, though. They actually covered it up on this side, but that actually looks like a flaw in the paint apps. Now, this figure probably stands a good amount more than 3 3/4 inches. I mean, he's a tall character. For reference, I could bring in the Iron Man Mark V. You could put them side by side. You could see the height difference. There's at least a head difference between the two. Probably a little more, honestly. The articulation is pretty nice. It's a ball-jointed head, and mine just popped off, so I'll give you a better look at it. You have the ball where you can swivel side to side and all that, and then it actually has a bit of articulation here to move it forwards and back, which is pretty nice. The head just snaps right back on, so if your head pops off, don't worry about it. I've safety tested it for you. You have the mid-torso thing, which I would have rather just had a solid torso and waist articulation, but I know that's how they're doing these figures. But you turn this at all and it messes up the chest. But you can't really put him in a dynamic pose having his upper body turned as you could if you could just turn the waist, because this just messes up his paint scheme. His arms are really nice. I like that they made the upper joint here pretty much a sphere. Because he has these big shoulder pads, and I was afraid he wouldn't be able to move his arm up, but, I mean, up until the point where the tip of this touches his arm can go out. So you really still get a lot of range, even though it looks like it would be more limited. And of course you can swing it forward and backwards, once again limited by the shoulder pad, which is a soft rubber, so you're not going to like rip it off when you're playing with them or messing with them. Rotate at the upper arm here, bend at the elbow, rotate the wrist, which by the way the hands are awesome on him. Both hands, really nice sculpts to them. It just looks like he's going to beat the crap out of you. Good onto the legs. They have a good little joint here. You can go out, side to side. It's a little stiff. Rotate at the upper leg. Bend the knee at 2 points. Bend the foot. And rotate the foot. There's a really nice selection of articulation on him, which is definitely appreciated. I've had people tell me before that if you're going to start with the Marvel Universe and you want to justify the price point that these things sell at, to pick up the big ones. And this is definitely one of the big ones as far as I could tell. I think he's about the same size as like the Juggernaut, and I think the upcoming Apocalypse is about the same size as well. And the Hulk I think is a little bit bigger. But still one of the bigger figures. And I am very impressed with what he is. Seeing by the fact that these things go for the same price as the Iron Man figures, I would say that if you're just looking for a Marvel figure in general, Iron Man might be your way to go, because they come with a lot more for the price. But, I mean, Colossus doesn't need any weapons. He's Colossus. He could just, you know, kick the crap out of you, and if he needs a weapon, he just picks up Wolverine and throws him in your face. So, it would have been kind of pointless to put accessories with him. I think the old Toy Biz figure of Colossus came with, like, weights or something. So, I mean, nothing useful with combat or anything. So, not like it's the first Colossus figure where they couldn't come up with a combat type of accessory with them. And I definitely don't mind. The sculpt is great on him. The paint is pretty nice. The articulation is fantastic. I like this articulation more than the Iron Man, just because it doesn't have that weird hip joint that Iron Man has. And if they just made it a waist articulated figure instead of the mid-torso ball joint, I would have loved it even more. So I would definitely recommend picking this guy up, and now I'm torn because I looked at the Iron Man figure and I was like, hey, I should probably pick up some more of these. These are pretty cool. Then I'm looking at these and I'm like, I think I like the Marvel Universe actually a little better, even though you don't get as much stuff. So I'm not really sure which way to go with this one. I think it's going to be Marvel Universe just for the expanse of characters you can get. And then I'm not limited to just a movie series, but I'll probably end up picking up a couple more Iron Man, and I'll probably end up picking up the new Thor and Captain America when they come out too. Based on the quality of these figures, I bet you're not going to go wrong with those new ones coming out. So this has been Outside the Box Review. Stay tuned for more in the future. Later.